Hey guys, Top Show Analyzer, aka TOSA for short, and welcome back to my series, TOSA Analyzes. Now, my computer is still not working, which is why you guys probably haven't seen any viewer votings or Object Show What Ifs posted recently, so to make up for it, I'll just do this series. Now, as you guys have read the title, you could see that today I will be analyzing Teardrop in this 10th episode of this series. And no, not the clear thing that comes out of your eyes when you cry. I'm talking about one of the most controversial characters in the whole BFB franchise. And if you still don't know what I'm talking about, she's literally on the screen right now, so I guess you'll see what I mean. But now let's begin. Also, forgot to add this, but I highly request that you watch BFB in fact, I request that you watch the whole BFDI to BFB and Teapot series, because obviously there's going to be spoilers that you will see in the clip above or at least on screen, and I'm going to be saying spoilers in general. So yeah, just wanted to add that, but now let's really begin. Okay, so starting from BFDI, Teardrop has always been this quiet character that was honestly pretty forgettable, but at the same time, she could have been pretty memorable based on how she handled herself. And by handle herself, I mean her actions and how she approached being the character that she was, which was the quiet one. But at least she did this throughout BFB, but I'll speak upon that later since right now we're talking about what she did throughout BFDI. Also, for those of you who have seen my BFDI contestants in a nutshell video, in it I said that Teardrop was underrated and that she could have won the season if her character arc was different. So I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Basically, since the BFDI episode 1 aired, she never really did anything in the whole BFDI season that made her stick out from the rest of the cast. All she really had was the contestant that doesn't talk label, which made her unique, of course, but we didn't really see her, or at least I didn't really see her, do anything with that title. Jack and Jellify could have definitely handled her character arc better, as she could have been more brave and courageous, or even more confident and strong, but instead, she was just pretty shy and a bit mean, if I'm being honest. Then again, Jack and Jellify were like in high school when they first made BFDI, so I can't really blame them for not giving Teardrop's character a little more thought, since being the quiet one is pretty boring. But maybe, and most likely, if they did do something with it, she could have most definitely made it farther in the game than she did, and maybe even win the season, but it's too late now. And the thing that makes me a bit mad is that if you just look at all the characters and, their personalities and what their label and title were, Teardrop literally had the best one, considering everybody else was just either lame, boring, or the same. Like Coiny and Fiery were the slappers, Leafy was the on and off relationship girl who got annoying after BFB 20, Bubbles, she died every episode. Like, Teardrop actually, even though it seemed boring at first, if you just did something with what her character was, she could have been something great. But at least we have BFB for that. Anyways, moving on to BFDIA, I'm just gonna flat out say that she was straight up screwed and robbed. And I feel like this is a really unpopular opinion, as I think no one has ever even said that before. Right now, you may be thinking how she is screwed, so I'm just gonna put you in a little scenario real quick. So imagine that you're on a game show, okay? And on that game show, there are two teams with an even amount of people, but one team is stronger than the other, and guess what? You're on the weaker team. Now imagine losing the challenge or event, and based on how you performed and how your personality is, the viewers will decide who goes home on your team. But the bad thing for you is that the other characters, or at least your teammates, are more likable and they had a better performance in the challenge than you. But it's no way your fault, because you don't choose how you act. That is literally the situation that Teardrop was put in. She literally got dragged onto a team without her consent, as the other team was way stronger than the little 3-4 people that the team she got dragged onto. Then their team, not surprisingly, lost the challenge as they were down in numbers. And the worst thing about all of this is that since there were only like 3 episodes prior to the episode where she was up for elimination, the viewers had to decide who they wanted to go home based on the previous season, which I have mentioned earlier, she did not have a character arc in BFDI. And that resulted with her going home in possibly one of the most unfair ways, as she had very, very little control over what happens. Plus, she didn't even do anything in BFDIA either, just like in BFDI. In the 3 episodes before, she didn't really do anything that changed her behavior, or at least that made her unique in any way. And the reason I say you can't blame her is because she isn't in control of what she does. Jack and Jellify is. Since they're literally animating her, they have to brainstorm about all the characters and what they do and whatnot. Now, if we go back to the scenario where Teardrop actually had a good character arc in BFDI, she most definitely would have been more loved and still be in the game if BFDIA continued. The one thing I don't understand though is that she also got the most liked votes, meaning to tell me that the viewers love her and hate her the most between her, Coiny Pen, and Needle. Or, at least what makes more sense is that she has a huge group of people who loved her more than her other 3 teammates, and at the same time had the most haters between the 4 of them. This proves that even though season 1 was in the past, it most definitely affected Teardrop's future, as she has now been eliminated 2 times in 2 different seasons just because of one little thing that was messed up. Or basically, at least Jack and Jellify messed up. Now, since Teardrop wasn't a contestant in IDFB, or at least she wasn't in IDFB episode 1 period, we're just gonna skip that season and move on. Okay, so in BFB episode 1, the episode for the most part started with everyone trying to get Teardrop to speak, which they failed to do so miserably. But besides the point, Jack and Jellify actually gave us a glimpse of what's in store for her for the season, as they dedicated most of a full episode to her, telling us, the viewers, that Teardrop is gonna get some type of actual character arc for the first time in this whole series, or at least that's what I see it as. But if I'm being honest, that didn't start really happening up until BFB post split. And I also just want to say that Jack and Jellify did a pretty terrible job in deciding who goes to Teapot and who stays in BFB. When they made the decision by putting certain people on certain shows, I feel as if they did not think about the viewers at all, or the fan base, as you're literally kind of destroying certain bonds and relationships by splitting certain characters apart from each other, like Cloudy and Balloony, or at least the rivalry from Taco and Book. Like, they could have made it better, but you're just gonna put it to the side and send them to different shows. But yeah, if I was in their position, I would have most likely did a viewer voting, like just putting them all up for voting and the viewers will vote. And I would just let them decide who they want to see in Teapot and who they want to see in BFB. So that way, you know, it's fair. You see who you want to see in each certain show. In the end, though, if I'm being honest, it worked out decently, to me at least, and I of course have no hate towards Jack and Jellify, but this reason is mostly why a lot of people hated post split, just because of the certain people in certain shows and certain eliminations were unfair. Like, most likely if Balloony was in Teapot, he wouldn't have been the first person eliminated, and that was an unpopular opinion, but I feel like now it's gaining more attraction because it doesn't seem that fair, you know. But you know, it is what it is. Another reason I think people hated post play is because of the whole Jack and Jellify's bias to Flower situation. Like, they made her kind of like a pick me girl, like pick me to win. But I think I think I covered that topic in my first episode in the series, TOSA Analyzes Flower. So yeah, hope you guys could check that out if you haven't already. Anyways, going back to Teardrop, I'd say that she was pretty helpful towards her team, but she kind of felt like a side character throughout the challenge in BFB pre-split, which is basically BFB 1 to BFB 15, 16-ish. Her team was mostly about the beef between Lollipop, Taco, and Book, while Saw was, for the most part, carrying their team and winning challenges, so not much seen from Teardrop in BFB pre-split. However, in BFB Post Split, we see a whole new Teardrop, as now, since there's a smaller cast, we could finally see who she really is and what she could do, which is probably one of the only good reasons for the split. You know, you could certain characters that you haven't seen a lot, you could see them, more because the cast is smaller. But Jack and Josephi also didn't do a really good thing in casting, like only Teardrop really. But if you dig deeper, probably people like Flower and Spongy, maybe they actually deserve to go to, well, stay in BFB. But yeah, that's how I see it, at least. Going episode by episode, and yes, I had to binge watch BFB Post Split just to make this video. In BFB 17, she started the episode by seeming like a follower, as she copied everybody and said no, or at least shook her head no, when 4 asked if they wanted to help him get X back. But everybody did that, so really it's not the same thing. Another time is when 4 said he'll bring back the original BFDI as a prize, and she copied everyone again by talking at the same time with their mouths open in joy, since they were also doing it. Now, since everybody did this doesn't really make Teardrop a follower per se, because you could say what I just said about TD, the same thing for anybody else, but she does have some scenes that make her stand out. And those scenes, to be exact, are when she gets out the van to take X, but then gets stopped by Pin, and the other scene being her getting left back, but then at the end her team came back for her, which in return lost in the challenge, but still. This showed a little preview of how self-dependent that Teardrop would become, and honestly, for a somewhat fresh start to a new part of the show, I have to say that this start wasn't really half bad, at least. Although in BFB 18 and BFB 19, Teardrop really didn't get that much screen time. Instead, in each episode, all she got was really one scene that represents herself, where in BFB 18, it's her pulling down Spongy's friendship bracelet from Taco, which makes Woody and Lollipop go flying in different directions while she herself falls down. And the scene in BFB 19 was her doing the sign language move with her hands to 4, telling him about how Ruby was making the aloe vera plants grow faster. Then in BFB 20, Teardrop got literally no screen time except for the ice pouring on the sun scene with her and Lollipop. But starting from BFB 21, since the cast starts getting smaller and since TD is still in, then that means that she would get more screen time, which she does, as she has the scene where she pops Bubble in the opening of the episode, which leads to the intro. And then that leads to where Bubble forgives her, and then they both become gift givers with Gelatin, while Lollipop and Leafy are the gift receivers. Yeah, it was kind of in sync just after the intro. But yeah, the last scene we see her represent herself was when she gave Gelatin the 8-ball thingy majiggy that tells you whether you're nice or mean, and they give it to Leafy. So yeah, she also had that when she gives to them inside the warehouse. But now I know these things are not really a lot of scenes, but trust me, it gets better from here on out in the episodes. Now in BFB 22, she didn't really get scenes that represent herself per se, but instead she got an arc to carry her throughout the episode, which was the typewriter. Basically, Leafy asked her to write down everything that happens in court, but in the end, all she did was write an adventurous comic about her with superpowers. And even though that seems random, it actually points out that Jack and Jellify didn't forget about Teardrop. Now, even though it was actually Leafy the one who told Teardrop to do this, Jack and Jellify representing themselves as Leafy, telling Teardrop that we didn't forget about you and that there's a lot in store for you in the future as the show goes on. And even though it doesn't really seem clear, it's a promise, and they actually live up to it, as the typewriter has something to do with next episode. And the proof to what I'm saying is literally the whole BFB 23. The whole reason the half-costs even won the challenge in the first place is because of Teardrop. She was the one who used the typewriter from the previous episode to write down some things she analyzed with a magnifying glass in the beginning, and what she wrote down was the materials that she needed to break 4 out from his cell that he was in, and that was the challenge, to break out 4. Even though some things didn't go as planned, The Half-Cots ended up inside of Purple Face's stomach, where they each were inside of their fashion sweater that they got from Flower. And that's where Teardrop decides to use her material that she got from Yellowface Warehouse to make Gelatin scream, which made his fashion sweater pop, which made him die, which made Four recover him, which made Gelatin get inside Four's cell. Since Four recovered him, he was next to him and Four was already inside the cell. And that made Gelatin bend the bars, which made the Half-Cots win. Technically speaking, though, the typewriter Leafy gave Teardrop the typewriter in the first place, so it's actually because of Leafy that they won the challenge, but whatever. Also, this episode showed Teardrop's true potential and how much of a valuable character and a teammate that she actually is to not just the show, but her team too. And this is probably one of the best episodes that represent her that's in the series. Now, BFB 24 was the merge, and this meant that Teardrop was finally alone and could now work by herself instead of relying on, or more accurately, being relied on to win challenges for her team. In this episode, though, the challenge was to throw a party for Four, which no one actually did, including Teardrop. But what she did do was throw an apology party for Gelatin, since earlier he talked to her and told her about some evil sus stuff she did to him over the course of the past few episodes, and that he wasn't really comfortable around her. But of course, after the party thing she did for him, he obviously forgave her. BFB 25 was pretty short, but some important things still happened to Teardrop in it. First of all, she was safe from the elimination, which made her reach the final 6, which, starting with 64 people, cut down to 14, and now you're like at least 1/8 of the way there. That's actually a long way. But then later on in the episode, Gelatin adds her to his newbie alliance with Lollipop because of their friendship, and it doesn't really make sense because if it's or at least you could add Teardrop, but I want to say call it the newbie alliance anymore because it's Teardrop's a OG since season 1, and I get Gelatin and Lollipop, they're starting season 2 as noobs. Well, actually Gelatin was in BFDIA too, so not really a noob either, but the name, it just doesn't make sense, period, point blank. But yeah, then the last one though is that when there were the two yin yang type totems in the tower, and she was gonna figure out which one was cursed and which one was good, but Lollipop insisted for them both to just guess and take whatever so that their friendship stays intact. And in the end, that led to Teardrop winning her first individual immunity by chance. And at least it's better than figuring it out, because if they figured it out and they knew which one was cursed and which one was not cursed, they would have fought and their friendship would be over. But not knowing and just guessing, it's fair in a way, I guess. Then in BFB 26, Teardrop turns mean for a bit, but it's in an understandable way, as the challenge was to bring Profile Lee up to the BRB because he unfairly joined, or as he says, he was there the whole time, but he was forgettable. I don't understand, man. That episode's pretty weird, but yeah, whoever did that would get immunity. Also, it was the final 5, meaning the finale was in like 2-3 episodes. So when Leafy asked Teardrop if she could get an immunity since everyone else already got one except for herself, obviously Teardrop could care less about that, and she continued on her way to get immunity since she stole Profile Lee from Leafy before. But yeah, long story short, Leafy ended up winning the challenge anyways, which led to TD being up for elimination, and for being mean, she was probably the one going to go home. Luckily though, in BFB 27, she got safe and she proceeded to add Leafy to her alliance with Gelatin and Lolly, who then added Flower. Not really an important scene, but what is a big scene is the scene at the end where Teardrop betrays Flower to win immunity. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean Teardrop is necessarily a bad character. I will refer to her, though, as doing a savage action to improve and help her game, since, there's only 4 competitors left, so she's close to the end. Then in BFB 28, Teardrop went pretty rogue in the final challenge, but in the end, that's probably what cost her to lose the challenge, and that's also what probably led her to being the final person eliminated in BFB 29. Or probably Gelatin is just more likable than Teardrop in general. No, it's kind of a popular opinion. I don't really agree with it because TD is much more developed, and even though she's not funnier than him, you know, I'd say that him or her, I feel like Teardrop should have made the finale over him, even though I do like Gelatin. Anyways, not gonna go into too much detail though on what she did in BFB 29 and BFB 30, but basically I say that she took her elimination pretty maturely, and she had a very important role and part in BFB 30, as she was the one who pointed out that 4 was hiding in the tree, which then led to him moving, which then led to him going into the sun and Gelatin having to talk with him. So yeah, she did play an important factor, at least. In the end, Teardrop was probably one of my top 10 most developed characters. I'll probably make a video on who I think like developed and who didn't really develop, like a top 10, top 20, something like that in the future. Probably one of my future videos. But for now, Teardrop, you know, she started out in BFDI and BFDIA really as just a side character, you know. Like everybody knew her at first, but then after that she got kind of forgettable, because even though she was the quiet kid, like the quiet one, the silent one, Jack and Joseph didn't really do anything with it until BFB, which is where she actually developed. So BFDIA, you know, she's nobody. IDFB, she didn't even compete. But BFB, you know, post split really is where we actually see the true her and how much of a good character she is. But yeah, that's how I see it, or at least that's how I see her. But as always, thanks for watching. If you still are, hopefully you like and subscribe. If you like this video, then make sure to sub so you could watch more, have 9 more videos in the series, and comment down below who you want me to see analyze next. But thanks for watching, and I hope I will see you guys next time.